The voyage of conscience and the sea of resistance. They came from many countries, many seas away, laden with hope and loaded with aid. Small parcels of rice, tins of beans, medical supplies, jars of baby formula, bags of grain. Their mission, to breach a blockade, to assert the dignity of lives under siege, to carry sustenance into a land racked by war and famine. Among them was Greta Thunberg, the young climate and human rights activist whose presence would ensure that global eyes remained fixed upon their journey. For too long, Gaza has been a realm under blockade, its ports closed, its skies contested, its borders tightly controlled. The population there endures shortages of food, medicine, and basic services. The call for relief and humanitarian access has echoed through UN corridors, in international legal chambers, and across social media. Yet as one flotilla after another has attempted to pierce the maritime cordon, they have met with sharp resistance. In June 2025, the Freedom Flotilla Coalition set sail with a modest vessel called Madeleine, flying the UK flag, carrying symbolic loads of essentials. Greta Thunberg and member of the European Parliament Rima Hassan were among its human cargo, intending their presence to amplify the moral urgency of the mission. Wikipedia. But the seas are not free in that stretch of the Mediterranean. Around 185 kilometers off the coast of Gaza, in what should have been international waters, Israeli naval forces closed in. They deployed drones to encircle Madeleine, sprayed an unidentified white irritant substance on its deck, jammed communications, ordered the crew to discard all phones and laptops, and boarded with special forces. Wikipedia. The activists described the scene as an act of abduction, even of kidnapping in international waters. Greta refused to sign documents declaring illegal entry into Israel. The Guardian. They were towed to Israel's port of Ashdod, detained, interrogated, and prepared for deportation. Israel characterized the flotilla as a provocation, asserting they were trying to breach what it calls a lawful naval blockade. Al Jazeera. Human rights groups pushed back. The seizure in international waters, they said, violated freedom of navigation and principles of humanitarian access. Wikipedia. That early flotilla was not the last. In October 2025, an even larger mission was assembled, the Global Sumud Flotilla, a civil society initiative spanning dozens of nations. Over 40 vessels and nearly 500 volunteers joined. Activists, lawmakers, journalists, humanitarians. Greta Thunberg again boarded, as did legislators from Italy, Spain, Greece, Turkey, and more. The Guardian. They sailed from Mediterranean ports, hoping to reach Gaza, breaking the silence and the blockade. The convoy carried food, medical kits, harvestable grains, all modest but potent in symbolism. As the flotilla neared Gaza, around 70 nautical miles offshore, Israeli naval forces intervened. They boarded most vessels, deployed skunk water, a noxious deterrent, and water cannons, jammed communications, and detained participants. The Washington Post. On one of the captured ships, a grainy video released by Israeli authorities showed Greta sitting on a deck, wearing a raincoat, surrounded by uniformed soldiers. Officials insisted she was safe and in good health. AP News. Meanwhile, organizers claimed the flotilla boats had been deliberately rammed, communications severed, and resistance met with force, even on what they insisted were non-violent humanitarian vessels. ABC 7 New York. Of the 40-odd ships, all but one were intercepted. That lone vessel, the Mykonos one, was believed to have slipped through the blockade into Gaza's territorial waters. Whether its aid was successfully offloaded is not yet certain. The Guardian. Some of those detained numbered over 440 foreign citizens from more than 40 countries. Within Israel, they were processed, registered in Ashdod, and slated for deportation. The Washington Post. Governments around the world responded with uproar. Protests erupted in Rome, in Buenos Aires, in Athens, in Istanbul, calling for immediate release of the activists, demanding respect for humanitarian law. The Times of India. Some countries expelled Israeli diplomats. Others demanded explanations. Times of Israel. The sequence of events reads like a drama at sea. Boats flanked by naval warships, activists holding hands mid-deck in defiance, flare signals, emergency calls, radio silence, and finally, detainment. For the volunteers, it was a moral voyage. Their cargo, though small, was meant as a beacon of resistance. Yet equally potent was the symbolism that people from all over the world would cross seas to affirm that hunger is not a crime, that borders should not shackle compassion, that the weight of a loaf of bread can challenge a blockade. Greta's name ensured global headlines. The presence of politicians lent diplomatic leverage. The presence of ordinary citizens lent moral force. Still, many were turned back. Some vessels never even approached Gaza's waters. They were intercepted before they could sail into what Israel deems a combat zone. Others were boarded mercilessly. Some activists were barred from even docking. Some were deported to their origin countries. Some had their equipment seized, their phones confiscated, their digital records scrubbed. The blockade remains. Gaza remains under siege. The sea remains contested, but each attempt chips away at silence. Each intercepted flotilla becomes a story passed from hand to hand, from media to parliament, from human rights defenders to ordinary citizens. The sea, too, remembers. It remembers the names carved on boat decks: Madeleine, Mikeno, Handala, in a later flotilla, Marinette, Wikipedia. It remembers the echoes of "We come in peace." It remembers Greta Thunberg refusing to sign, sitting aboard detained decks, turning her witness into the waves. It remembers the hum of drones, the hiss of water cannons, the groan of rams, and it remembers those who accepted arrest rather than turn away. This is their tale, a voyage of conscience across borders, into contested waters, against wall and wave. It is the story of those who tried to reach those who cannot come to us. In the murmur between waves, in the tightening of ropes, in the hush before boarding, they whispered, "We are here, we soar, we insist that life and dignity transcend blockades." Epilogue note. The struggle continues. New flotillas are planned. Legal challenges are underway. International courts mull over whether the interceptions constitute piracy or just war. The world watches, and the sea listens.